Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be about the new Byredo Mineralscapes palette. So I've had this for about a week now, done multiple looks with it, been playing with this off camera and filmed some looks as well. Really enjoying this and really excited to finally sit down and film this video. So I already filmed swatches, already filmed a couple looks, took some photos of some other looks. So we're going to do one more look on camera, go over all of that and see if this is worth your money. This is an expensive palette. They come out with one big palette a year that's around $100. This was $115 this year, so it's a big investment, a big splurge. And I want to know, is it worth it for me, and could it be worth it for you? And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Colin. I'm a non-binary Latinx scientist and lover of makeup with a definite soft spot for indie makeup and high-end makeup. And I tend to take a pretty analytical approach to the content I make based on, my personality and training, be it talking about something new or just talking about things I already know and love. And I have new videos every week, so I'd love to have you subscribe. Every year, Byredo comes out with a new palette in the spring, like early April, end of March. They have their smaller palettes that are shaped like a pebble and they look really beautiful. I haven't actually bought any of those. I do really want to, but for the last 4 years, this time of year, they come out with a big 18 pan palette. And those smaller palettes are like $70 around there, 70, 75 for 5 eyeshadows. And this is around 100 for 18. So like per shadow, per gram, it's a much better deal, which is how I bought the first one. And I have fallen in love. And this is my third one. So I didn't get the original one. I'm very sad about that. It was the Prismatic palette, I think. Hi, Bean. But I have the Flora Kalahari, last year's Remembrance, and now this year's Mineralscapes. So mine is all fingerprinted because I've already filmed multiple looks and I've been using it for about a week. And even if I wipe it off, it does get fingerprinted. That is the downside to these, is they are literally a mirror. Every part of this is mirrored, but I think they're really pretty in day-to-day if you don't mind the smudges. So the first large palette like this, and I think the second one, were both designed by Isabella, who now runs her own brand, Isabella Beauty, Isabella French. The first one had her face on the front, and then Flora Kalahari was the first one that I bought. I bought this when I was in LA. And I absolutely love it. I wanted to buy it, but the fact that I was in LA, the boutique had it, so I could swatch it. I instantly fell in love. Love this one. It is desert themed, based on the name. Really beautiful. I've been using this a lot for 2 years, and I still really like it. So last year they came out with the Remembrance palette. I don't remember who designed this. It was like a guest person. It wasn't the owner of Byredo or Isabella. But it is a really beautiful, it looks really boring, but it is a really beautiful, warm, neutral, kind of all rosy brown clay shade palette. And then this year, they went cool. They went back to the nature theme, like Flora Kalahari, but they went with Scandinavian, like rivers and forests, and I love this. So as soon as I saw it, as soon as I saw the sneak peeks, I needed it. I do know some people like my friend Beauty and the Frizz. She bought it from like Selfridges or one of those places where she paid more and then paid for shipping. And I was like, no, I will wait till it's on the Byredo website. I don't care about being the first person on YouTube to have it. And I know a few other people who bought it from those websites. So those were like 130 something plus shipping. From the Byredo website, this is $115, which is a lot. That's almost as much as Mothership palette from Pat McGrath. And so it's not something to like, for most of us, it's not something we're just gonna throw our money away on. Last year's was $105, so they did increase the price by $10. But I still really love it. Everything's getting more expensive. I think this is a really beautiful color story. It is, again, very muted and very earthy, but instead of those desert tones, it is very much the like river, the like Nordic river forest vibe, and I love this. So I already filmed some in-depth swatches and swatch comparisons that I will cut to in a minute. Not sure how long that'll actually be, but I will have timestamps below. And then I already have a few looks that I filmed that I will insert, and then we'll do one more on camera, and I have some that I've taken off camera or some looks that I've done off camera that I can insert at least one of here. and we'll get to final thoughts at the end and see if I think it's worth it for me and who it might be worth. So let's get into the swatches. I always say this before swatches, and I think I said it in that clip when I filmed it the other day, but swatches don't really tell you about performance. They are strictly there to show you the color. Swatching with your finger on your hand is very different from on your eye. I just do this so you can see the colors, see things side by side, see what the texture might be like, especially if you have a medium skin tone with an olive undertone like I do. I find this helpful, and hopefully you do too. I don't put any primer down, lotion, nothing. It is just bare arm, and I really filled my arm and hand and everything. So let's go into the swatches, and then we'll go to the other looks, and we'll come back to do one final look on camera. Okay, welcome to my table. Time for swatches. You can see my very fingerprinted up palette right here. I do really like the rocks that they put on the front. And you can see a nice better shot of the palette itself. Really beautiful. Really, these are the kind of tones that I've been using and interested in a lot lately, so really happy to have all-in-one palette and from a brand and formula I really like. So very excited to finally swatch this, and I do have a nice big stack of comparisons here to do. I did ask for comparisons on my community tab, and so I did pull those things out plus a couple other things. So I am going to try to swatch these kind of in color families versus straight order, just to make this a little bit easier if you're kind of worried about something like these two being too similar or the greens being too similar. So I'm going to do these 3 blues first, then the greens, and then we'll kind of move on to the rest. So this first shade, this is Grounding Sky. Very silky. It's a nice light blue, kind of a nice denim blue metallic. And then there is Lunar Rhythm and Matter and Life are the next two. So this is Lunar Rhythm. Feels a little denser. It's a little less shiny. And this is Matter and Life. Very creamy, very similar to the first shade. So kind of a light blue, gray blue, very denim-y. Yeah, this one's a little less shiny, but it has little micro sparkles in it. And then this one is, again, shiny, just kind of similar formula to the first. So this one has tiny, bright blue sparkles running through it, and then the undertone is definitely a little different. Hopefully that shows up on camera. This definitely has a little bit more green in it. This has a little more like dark navy. Okay, so now let's do the greens. So we've got Painting Land, Sandstone, and then River Mist. This is definitely sparklier and looks a little more sage. So this Painting Land feels very smooth. Beautiful olivey antique gold kind of green. This one feels a little thicker, a little more olive, really pretty. And then this one feels a little drier, a little less creamy, like a little less binding agent. So again, it's Painting Land, Sandstone, River Mist. So Painting Land definitely has a gold shift to it. Sandstone, a little darker, much darker on camera. Still kind of an oliveness to it. And then this one's, yeah, like I said, much less binding, a lot more sparkly. So it's kind of like a muted sage. There's not really much of a base to it. It's like a soft sage base with lots of gold green sparkle. So it kind of pulls gray. It's really interesting. So the next 3 shades are Bedrock. This one definitely looks sparklier. Feels a little thicker, kind of like this one. Nice taupe. This is the shade Mineral. This one looks a little softer, more satin. And then Steel Light. Again, a little softer. So we've got the kind of taupe, sparkly metallic. This is kind of a pinky taupe, but much lighter. And then we've got this pale, like, yellow. Oh, that's really pretty. I have already used that one on the eyes. It is a really beautiful metallic. This one's, yeah, like a champagne taupe. Much more just straight up metallic. And same with this yellow gold. So the next three are Sunbeam, Solar Spark, and Pink Flame. Sunbeam looks like a little bit more warm yellow, but a little bit more peach to it versus that. This one is it's pink with lots of little sparkle. And this is a very neutral, kind of neutral clay brown. Really pretty. So there are the two yellows side by side. So this one definitely is a little more yellow. This one has more peach to it. This one is definitely pink with sparkle. Lots of little gold sparkle in it. And then we've got that kind of rose gold clay metallic. That's really beautiful. So the next three are Sun Dried, which is one of the two mattes, very silky. Steel Ray, or this is Low Tide, and this is Steel Ray. So very silky matte, kind of a clay color. This one feels very smooth and soft. This one has a little bit more grip and a little more dryness to it. So I am definitely running out of room. Okay, so there's the clay matte. I really like the Byredo mattes. Really beautiful. Low Tide, it's kind of a nice purpley. There's a bit of that clayness to it, but it's also purple. And then this is Steel Ray, I think. And that is definitely purple, just like purple, really pretty. More metallic than this. This is more satin, but it's definitely more purple. I already did these up there. We've only got 3 shades left. So we have Blue Dream, High Tide, and Translucent Matter. So Blue Dream is a soft, sparkly, kind of lilac-y purple. This is the other matte, very, very silky and creamy, very clay-like in texture, but not grippy like clay, but just that soft silkiness. That's High Tide. And then Translucent Matter is a really nice lilac-y gray metallic. So yeah, that's definitely like gray lilac, and there's little bits of sparkle in it. Hopefully that's coming across. I'm just gonna go onto my hand. So we've got the blue-gray matte, and then this is like a taupey. This is like I think, yeah, it's a taupey satin, so it would go well with the purples, the neutrals. Really beautiful. So that is the whole color story swatched out. And now let's do some comparisons. So I pulled out a bunch of comparisons. Some of these I was already planning to do, but some of these were requests from my community page. This just I bought recently, and so it's sitting here. This is one of the YSL quads. I don't think this really, actually this shimmer is kind of similar, but overall not really that same plus a quad. That was just sitting here. So I've got Lisa Eldridge, Vega. I've got the other 2 Byredo palettes that I own, Natasha Denona Metropolis, Nomad Cosmetics Ghost Town, and Pat McGrath's Subliminal. I'll do some side-by-sides and some comparison swatches. So here is Subliminal. This is one of my top 2 Pat McGrath palettes. Definitely not the same overall. This has the greens, has some warm tones, but there are a couple shades that are kind of similar. Like I said, this reminds me of some of these purple tones, so I'm gonna swatch this. This is one of my favorite purples. It's a satin, but really beautiful, and you can see not identical to any of these, but very similar. So I'm just gonna swatch it across the top so we can kind of see it side by side. It's a little bit more actual purple, a little less muted than these, although you could probably get a similar look with a combination of these shadows. I don't really have a dupe for this purple, but this also shows you the formula. This is another one I like to do as a one and done. So you can kind of see that Pat standard metallic formula next to some of these. The satins are about the same, the other metallics are a little shinier. It's kind of between the satins and the metallics. I don't think there's anything quite like this. Yeah, see, this is a little darker and more gray. But these two metallics are kind of in the same vein as this part of the palette. And since I haven't, I'll do the blue as well. This is a much more vibrant blue. So you can see it. I'll just do it down here. Much sparklier and more vibrant. So not really the same blue as this, and we don't really have any of the intense duochromes as this. You do have a pale gold, but the Pats is a lot shinier. So you can see it's sparklier, a little more sheer. It's that dry baked formula, but color-wise, it's kind of similar to this top yellow. So if you like that yellow, this is a very similar yellow, just a smoother formula. Okay, next I have Ghost Town USA from Nomad. This was their palette in the fall, I believe. I did get this one sent to me in PR. I really love this palette. And you can see this is one that I was gonna compare, but also was requested. Very similar concept. So you have these muted blues, these muted greens. You've got some like clay-like neutrals. This is much cheaper. This is like, before a discount code like mine, this is like $40, $45, somewhere in that range. It's one of their bigger ones, so maybe $49. This is $115, very different. But you can see they are pretty similar in theory, just formulas are just gonna be very different. So like one of these greens from Nomad, you can see it's much shinier. I'll put it up here. It's a little more sparkly. It's more metallic and shiny. These are a little bit more muted in both color and formula. A little softer, less sparkly and metallic. This shade here in the middle, again, kind of a champagne, kind of like this one, but much sparklier. I love this shade. If you don't want to pay $115 and you want more mattes and a little more sparkle, I think this is a really great alternative for less than half the price. But so you can see them side by side. There's definitely a similar overall vibe. So this one was another request. This is Natasha Denona Metropolis. I don't think these are that similar. I think this is much more muted. I will put it more like this. I think Metropolis is a little bit more similar to Flora Kalahari in those like earthy desert tones, more olives. Everything's just more saturated. You've got all these golds and stuff, but you do have this bright blue here and this teal here. The formulas are very different. I will put them down here. You can see much shinier, much more green. These are not as reflective. And the matte, she has her cream to powders, which they don't have in the Byredo. So I don't think these are very similar, but could be nice companions. I think this is a lot more similar to Flora Kalahari. So before I do the other Byredo palettes, I do have my Lisa Eldridge Vega palette, one of my other favorite cool tone neutral palettes. You can see it's much smaller. For about half the price, you get significantly less. But this is also a much better price per shadow and per gram than like Byredo's normal palettes. But this is them side by side. I don't think anything is directly similar. I can do this gray matte. This is French gray next to the gray matte here. This is more of a cream to powder gray, and this is just a silky powder. But you can see here is Lisa's, and here is the Byredo. Lisa's is darker, but they both have that kind of blue to them. This is a little bit, it's just, you're gonna get softer. It's an actual matte instead of this more creamy cream to powder matte, and it's definitely lighter. And then I don't think there's any other direct comparisons. I can do these two shimmers next to like this, so you can kind of see the difference. So here is the two from Lisa. This one's really smooth, this one's kind of sparkly. And then here's the Byredo that's similarly taupe. It's reflective, like it's kind of like these two put together, but the undertone is different. But formula-wise, it's the smoothness of this and the sparkle of this one. But it's much more neutral. It has a little bit of a, yeah, it definitely has that taupe undertone when you see it next to those. And then I have my other two Byredo palettes. So this is last year's Remembrance, and this is the Flora Kalahari. Let's do Remembrance first. These are not that similar at all. This is much, again, warm and cool, but this is a very different version of warm and cool. So this is kind of warmth in the greens, in the clay, cool in the blue and purple. This is cool in the pinks, warmth in these like bronzy browns and oranges. Very clay-like again, but this is like a palette of clay versus a couple clay shades. Can do, I don't think there's any, yeah, there's no direct comparisons like this clay versus this. These are all kind of clay tones, but not this. Do this shimmer again versus like this shimmer. So I'll do them at the back of my hand. So this is the one from this year's palette. This is the shimmer right here from Mineralscapes, and this is the one from last year's. So you can see there's definitely more of a rose gold pink hue to this. This has a little bit more brown to it. And then I think this is probably the closest matte to this one. So you can see the Mineralscapes versus Remembrance. Remembrance has more rose to it. And there's a little bit more coolness to the Mineralscapes matte. And then Flora Kalahari, the one that started it for me. Again, nature and like muted tones, but instead of like Scandinavian fjord, you know, grass and river bank area, you have the desert. So again, you have some clay tones, but you can see this one is much more clay. This one has a little bit more warmth brown to it. You have the actual orange there. This blue is way different, very sparkly. Much more sparkly, like blue sparkles in a black base. Very different from this. The pinks, this is a lot softer in a baby pink. These are more like pink gold. They've got that gold of the desert in them. So you can see there's a gold flip here, and this has more of an icy flip. So no side-by-side dupes, but definitely I think nature-inspired themes done very differently from different parts of the world. You've got the muted desert versus the muted forest and river. I think the only one that's left is I can do this olive here. This is a much more muted olive to either of these. So here's the one from Flora Kalahari, and here are these two. This definitely has more brown to it, a little more earthiness. These are earthy and like a more vibranty green, like by the riverway, versus deserty brown earth. So really happy I have both. I think these are very distinct. These are my two favorites though. Okay, so hopefully these swatches and comparisons were helpful. I'm gonna move these out of the way. One last look at all the swatches and comparisons. I'm very pleased with this. I know I saw some comments saying that there were repeat sheets in the palette. I don't think there are. Even with these two being similar blues, I don't think there's any repeats. So hopefully this was helpful. So for today's part of the video, I'm going to be doing 2 looks, 1 per eye, just to try and get some extra looks in here, try out a few more shades, but be a little faster on this since I am a little bit behind in filming. So I already have some makeup on. I wore my Lisa Eldridge skin tint today to work and did my brows with my Kosas brow gel. And then when I got home, because I was in a rush this morning, threw on a little bit of concealer, little blush and stuff, and I will have everything in the description box. I'll probably use pretty much the same products in every look just to make it. So I think for the final look, I'm gonna use the greens just because I am a sucker for green, but today I wanna play with a few of the other shades in here. I have tried a handful of the shades in here and they are really beautiful, so I'm really excited to keep playing with this. I'm gonna put a little bit of my NARS eye primer on before I start. I always use eye primer. I really like this one. It's the only way I can get really any shadows to last on my eyelids, so it is a necessary step for me. I'm gonna blend this in and be right back. So at the time of filming this, I've not watched any other videos. I have heard some things about what other people think. I heard that Charlotte Hallcroft had a lot of fallout, and I know Alicia Archer did a video, I believe, but I haven't watched any of that yet. I just want to go into this based on my own experience. So you only have two mattes in here, the more gray shade and then the kind of clay shade right here. So you can, depending on the formula, you can either start with the matte like a lot of people do, you can buff the edges with a matte. I think I'm gonna try both today just to show you how both might work. So I think on this side, I'm gonna use the clay shade and the shade next, the shimmer next to it. So I'm gonna pick up the clay shade on this. This is my Sonergy T5. It is very similar to a rougher one, but a little bit more pinched. And I'm gonna pick up a little bit of that, tap off, and I'm gonna put that on the outer part of my lid and into my crease as a transition, kind of standard fare. Might get more fluffy the longer I have it, but right now it is a little more pinched than a rougher one. If you want to see them side by side, you can see this is fluffier, but I've had this for a long time and it's been washed many times, so this might get a little fluffier. Always putting the brush down first where I want most of the color, and then blending it in. This is a really beautiful clay shade, kind of peachy, kind of pink, but that like more muted clay. I think this will work really well with pretty much all of the shadows in here. I like the juxtaposition of cooler tones next to a shade like this. But if you really want it fully cool, then you've got the more gray. That works just like every other Byredo matte that I've tried so far. Very smooth, very silky, kind of blends without any effort. So you could obviously use your finger for any of these shimmers as well, but I'm gonna try a brush. This is another one of the Sonergy brushes from the Tradition set. This is the T2. It's a nice big packing brush. I'm gonna pick up this shade here. This is the shade Pink Flame. It looks like they're standard metallic, not sparkly like this and not as satin as some other ones. So I think it'll pick up well on this. And I'm gonna put that on the lid. Yeah, that's really pretty. You could obviously also start with the shimmer. I think with the more satin ones or the more standard metallics like this, that works really well. I have not swatched most of the palette, so I don't know for sure which is which formula, which ones are a little tighter packed, which ones are a little softer. I'm just going based off the other two palettes that I have and the look in the pan. That's really pretty. That's really neutral. You could just leave it there. You could add some liner or smudge, some like my grass liner, the Lisa Eldridge one, the black coffee, cocoa from Victoria Beckham, smudge that on the lash line, and this could be a really easy everyday look. But I do want to add a little bit of something. So I'm gonna try one of the blues here as liner. I like the contrast of blue against these kind of tones. So I don't know if you'll be able to see this on I think you should be able to see this on camera, but this one has a little bit more like navy undertone to it, and this one has a little bit more of a teal to it. There's a little bit more green to this one. I think I'm gonna use this one today. And obviously you could use this on the outer corner, kind of like a matte, because it is a pretty smooth metallic. You can also use it all over the lid, but I'm gonna use it as liner. This is a smudgy brush. I really like these from Sonia G. This is the T1. I have this in both versions, the persimmon dyed and the goat, or the squirrel. I think it's a really nice shape and size for smudging. So I'm gonna pick up a little bit, picks up very nicely. Still tapping off. I never really have a problem with fallout, but I always tap off my brushes, and I don't see a lot of other people tap them off. And I wonder how much of the fallout issues people have would be fixed if they just tapped off the excess. And I'm just gonna run that along my lash line. This is a really pretty blue. Very smooth, very creamy. Just tapped in a little bit again. And you could just leave it basically like this. Or you can kind of extend it out a little bit like a wing, or actually make a wing. I don't want like a true wing, I just want a flick. I really like that. And using this over an intensifies or like spraying this would make it probably even bolder, or putting this over a liner. Actually, like putting a smudgy liner like the Lisa Eldridge or the Victoria Beckham down and then putting this on top would make it a little darker and probably pop a little bit more, but I really like that. The little subtle pop of blue. And I think I'm gonna go into that first brush again, and I'm gonna pick up a little bit of this pale kind of yellowy shade, not as green yellow as this, or more warm yellow. I'm gonna put that on the inner corner and up here. Yeah, I like that. And if you want a little more sparkle, there's the sparkly pink right next to the shade that I used. Yeah, that add a little more pink, a little less neutral kind of clay. This definitely pulls more neutral and clay, as you can see. So if you want to add more pink and a little more sparkle, there's that shade. Okay, I really like that. I'm gonna go straight into the other eye, and then we'll do mascara and stuff at the end. So I think for this eye, I want to use the more purple tones here. I might top it with one of this. One looks a little more sparkly, but I think I'm gonna start with this. You can see this looks pretty taupe. This looks a little more purple taupe, a little darker. I'm gonna start with this, and then maybe put that on the inner part of the lid, but I'm gonna start with the shimmer. These look a little bit more like the satin shimmers. Yeah, I can see that is definitely a little bit more satin than metallic. This is a Sonia G Worker, the Fusion Worker. Just picked it up on this. It's a nice brush for this kind of metallic. This is really pretty. This reminds me of one of the shades in Subliminal. And I'm just gonna buff this all over. Yeah, this reminds me a lot of one of the shades from Subliminal. Really nice for a one and done. Like I can literally just turn the brush on its side and buff the edges. And you could spend a little time buffing and that would be it. So pretty satin, metallic. I think if I build it up a little bit, you see a little bit more of the metallic, but that's really pretty. These are the kind of shades, this is the kind of everyday look I do if I'm in a hurry. Okay, I wanna try the shade here. It looks slightly lighter, but a similar texture. I'm gonna put that on the inner part of the lid. Yeah, very similar, just a little paler. So you can have that easily be a two and done look. But I also wanna try buffing the edges with this matte, so I could pick it up with the same brush, but I'm gonna pick up a little bit with this. This is a rougher one. Tap off the excess, and I'm just going to lightly dust that over the edges to make sure that there's a nice smooth blend, especially if you're someone who doesn't want any shimmer in your crease. I think these are pretty forgiving though. Okay, I really like that. I would wear this happily to work. I do want to pick up a little bit of this shade that looks maybe a little darker, a little sparklier. And I'm going to put that on the outer part of the lid. Yeah, it's definitely darker. Definitely has a little bit more sparkle. I feel like that gives it a nice shadow and gradient. If I wanted more depth, I would definitely throw on some black eyeliner or like a dark, dark brown out here. And then I think I want to try, just using the same brush again, a little bit of this light purple. It looks sparkly in the pan. There's also the light blue if you want to go a little more blue. And I'm going to tap that in. Yeah, it added a little bit of twinkle. I think if I use my finger, you might get a little bit more. No, it's still, once you touch it, it starts to smooth out, but it does have a little bit of twinkle compared to the pure satins. Okay, I really like that quick, everyday kind of purple gray, which I love. I definitely will compare this to the Pat McGrath shades in Subliminal. I haven't done swatches yet. Okay, I'm gonna go off camera real quick and throw on some mascara, and I will be right back. So this is the finished first two looks. I just went ahead off camera and added my Lisa Aldrich mascara. Really like both of these. These are both kind of go-to looks for me. Not necessarily this exact look, but things that I've done in the past, and these are the kind of tones I really like. I like that you can go really neutral if you really want. You can do the pop of blue, you can do a whole blue smoky eye since you have the light blue and the dark blues. You can do kind of this purple gray smoky eye, which I really love. I like that everything's desaturated. Really liking this so far, really excited to keep playing. So let me know what you think of these two looks, and let's get on to the third. So hopefully the swatches, comparisons, and other looks were helpful. So we're gonna do one more look on camera now. And then I do have footage from at least one more that I can include when we go into final thoughts. So I did just put on some eye primer. I did use the NARS eyeshadow primer. It's the only one I have right now, and I really love this. I do have to use eye primer with pretty much all eyeshadows, so that's just kind of the base. For the rest of my makeup, I'll have it in the description box. I think I used pretty much the same products for every look. I have a little bit of concealer on, a little under my eyes, and a little bit more of a skin tone one for around my face where I needed it. A little bit of, I used the House Labs Fireman blush, a little bit of the Victoria Beckham cream blush underneath that, and then my Victoria Beckham bronzer. And for my lip, I have one of the YSL, this is the new Love Shine lip oils in, this is the Scenic Brown shade, which I also have in the Candy Glaze. Really love this. I got this during the Sephora sale, and I've been wearing it nonstop. So, but it's pretty neutral, which I think goes well with pretty much everything. So, for the looks that I've already done, I've used the neutral shades, I've used the purples, I've used the blues, and off camera I have used the taupe shade. Really love that as just a sparkly neutral taupe. So I'm gonna do the greens today. You could, because they're very creamy, especially if you started with this one, you could just use those and blend the edges, but I am gonna put down the sun-dried matte, the clay shade down as a base. For the blue looks and stuff, I did buff the edges with the gray versus putting the gray down first. But I think for this, instead of buffing the green with the more neutral, I want to put the neutral as the base in the transitions. So I'm going to pick up a Refer 15. I've already used the shadow on it, so that's why it has that color. And I'm just going to pick up a little bit. You can see there is some kick up in the pan for these. I don't think it's too much. And I do tap off. They are very soft. And I'm just going to dust this all over as a transition. I like that these mattes work well in this method or with buffering the edges, depending on what you want for the look. But you can see they blend really effortlessly. Like it just kind of melts into the skin. That's why I like this formula. Works really easily, melts into the skin. It's smooth, there's no skipping, it's very effortless to use. My last video that went up was using the Melt 420 palette, which I do like, and it does take a little bit of blending. Like this is pretty much instant. I'm not cutting anything out. That I did have to speed up. it wasn't like too much that I wouldn't use it, but it was like, you know, 30 seconds of blendings that I sped up to 4 seconds for the video or something, versus this that is literally taking like 5 seconds to 10 seconds. So I'm just picking up a little bit more, dusting it off, and then just tapping it where I want the most amount out here to give that shadow and shape, and then bluffing in the edge. I don't have any fallout from this. I've never gotten fallout from these. I did hear that Charlotte Holcroft had issues with fallout. I haven't watched any other videos yet, just because I don't like to watch videos on something that I'm gonna be trying and reviewing, unless it's like way after the fact. Like if I'm trying to find a shade match or find if it's worth spending my money on. I consume beauty content just like the people probably watching this. But if it's something like this that's new that I'm reviewing, I don't like to watch even my friends' videos until I'm done. But I always tap off my brush, so I don't really have an issue. I do find that most people don't tap off their brushes enough or make sure that it's really in the brush. So I don't ever really have fallout issues. Really like this. It's just a really good transition. I'm gonna take a little bit of it on this brush and just put, this is a Refer 2. I'm just gonna put a little bit down here. You could also use bronzer for this if you wanted. If you didn't want this like pinky clay tone, this is very much the color of clay. If you didn't want that, I would just use bronzer, since there's only the 2 mattes. Wow. You can tell it's been a long week. My voice is not my friend. Okay, I want to use all of the greens maybe. This one's a little darker and a little thicker. This one's a little bit more satin. So I'm going to put this on the inner part of the lid and this on the rest of the lid, and then I might put some of this on. But I'm going to use, this is a Sonia G T2 from the Traditions set. It's a packing brush, but it's got a little bit of fluff, versus the Refer 2 is a little more pinched, a little smaller, you can see. And there I go, throwing it. And then my go-to shimmer brush for especially indie shimmers or anything that I want to make sure picks up well, you can see is much thinner. This I like for things like this, or Pat McGrath's metallics, something where I want it to kind of blend at the same time. So I'm going to pick up, this is the shade Painting Land. You can see it picks up very well. And I'm going to put that, oh, that's so pretty. So just a nice kind of pale olive-y tone, but with some gold in it. Yeah, this is one that you could definitely put all over the lid, blend the edges, because it's so smooth. And just like, that be it. Maybe buff out the edges with bronzer. Because I always wear bronzer, because my skin tone and everything, I have to use bronzer with a look, so I don't mind using it as an eyeshadow as well. I think it makes a really nice cohesive look. So for a really natural look, I would put bronzer on my lid or in my crease and then kind of just buff this in, and that would be it. I've done similar looks with other palettes. I think I would like that. Okay, next I'm gonna go into Sandstone, which is the darker shade. It's a little bit thicker, as you can see in the pan. This is the same brush. I just did both sides with that. This is very springy, and you can see this is a much darker green. So I'm patting it down, and then just using the brush to buff it into the crease and the other shade. I feel like I had a ColourPop palette with these kind of tones in it years ago that I used to really like, but don't like the quality of ColourPop eyeshadows, and this is just a much easier to use, prettier, and more refined version of that. See, I really like that. This is a really good everyday look for me. Okay, I'm gonna do that on the other side as well. Just picked up a little bit. And obviously if you wanted a little bit more smoky, you could use just the darker green. Okay, I really like that. This is pretty much done. I could call it a day right here, and this would be the end of the look with some mascara. But I do want to throw on this really pale yellow gold here I just wiped off the brush on a microfiber towel here, picking up just a little bit, and I'm gonna put it right on the inner part of the lid, inner corner and up. I don't want like a blinding inner corner, but just the inner part of the lid onto the inner corner a little bit. Okay, I really like that. You can definitely build that up to be a little brighter, but I don't like an overly bright inner corner. And put a little bit down here actually too. Okay, I like that. I'm gonna go off camera real quick, add some mascara, and I will be right back. Okay, so this is the finished look. I just went ahead and added my Lisa Aldridge mascara on, put a little bit more of the lip oil on. I really like this. This is a very everyday look for me. I will definitely repeat this look many, many times. I love this. And like I said, if you didn't want that like slightly more clay tone, bronzer would work really well with this and make it even more neutral, but I do really like the clay-y, like pinky brown with the greens, so I'm really happy with this. So I'm gonna zoom back out and then we'll do final thoughts. So I do have, this is gonna be a long video, so I do have another look that I took footage of. I've used this a couple times off camera for work and stuff, but I did film clips and take photos of another look where I used the blues because I really wanted a blue smoky eye. So I will insert a little clip here, but I used this as the buffer around the edges, but I started with this light denim shade up here, and I used this blue down here on the outer part of the lid, and I blended the edges with this, and that was it. That was the whole look. Really beautiful blue smoky eye. Really enjoyed it, really easy. If I wanted it a little bit more smoky, I could have stuck with just this. I could have topped it with one of these for a little bit of sparkle, or put another topper on there. I think it worked really well, and I just had to do an all blue look. So I think you can do a green look, you can do the blue look, you can do kind of a purpley gray, you can do a warm look, you can do a taupe. I think there's a lot of versatility here. So I've had this for about a week, which is, I think, good enough to do a fairly in-depth review like this, but not the most in-depth, it's not, you know, 6 months down the line. I feel like the true test of a palette is months and months into using it. Do you still love it? And so I will definitely revisit this at the end of the year, maybe do another video, like a revisiting, like a part of my revisiting series, probably next year. But so far, I am really loving this. Yes, it is an expensive palette, but I have many other $100 palettes, which I never thought that would happen. But I think this is well priced for the quality and formula and what you're getting. So for me, this is 100% worth it. That doesn't necessarily mean it is worth it for you. So you only get 2 mattes. So I think that's important to know. If you are someone who really wants mattes, prefers mattes, most of your looks revolve around your mattes, and you have to have a matte in your crease, you have to have an outer corner shade, this is not a palette for you. You would be wasting your money unless you want to pair it with something else, but that's how you use your makeup. You need to know that. I think these are both really beautiful mattes. You're not gonna get a super dark smoky eye. I mean, you can get pretty dark with these blues, but if you want a lot more depth, you're gonna need to pull something else in. You're gonna need to use an eyeliner and smudge it. You're gonna need to do something. And you have to like satins. So if you are an indie eyeshadow lover, I mean, I love indie eyeshadow. Most of my collection is indie eyeshadows. This is not a Cleona. This is not even as sparkly as a Nomad Cosmetics. There is a lot of sparkle in some of these, but it's more of a twinkle. It's a very different kind of sparkle. This is the kind of thing in the last year or so that I've moved towards using on a day-to-day basis. You have some really beautiful satins. You saw I compared them to Pat McGrath's Standard Metallics. They're a very similar formula. It's soft, it's emollient, it blends really easily and melts into the eye. The mattes are just really wonderful. They're much softer. They're not like a Lisa Aldridge matte or even the YSL matte that I have. They're they're very soft, but in like, not in a bad way. I mean, I don't think. And I think the shimmers are just really beautiful, really refined. When I've worn this during the day to work or out and about, I've gotten compliments on it. It's just a really, same with the other palettes, it's just a really lovely formula. I like all of these tones. I think the one I will use the least is the sparkly pink, just because I don't really like pink that much against my skin tone. But I think this is a really beautiful curation, and I think it fits the theme very well. When you compare it to the Flora Kalahari palette, you can see Flora Kalahari, let me grab this one. This is a little hard to do because they're kind of big. Flora Kalahari, I do not want to drop these. Flora Kalahari, there we go. Flora Kalahari is again muted and earthy, but a very different muted and earthy. It's a little more warm. I mean, there is some pink in here, but like a lot of these pinks have gold to them, like a pink gold duochrome or a peach. This is much more desert, which is my go-to, but this is much more of a muted desert scene, and this is much more of a muted Scandinavian forest and river. And I think when you read the description on the website and the inspiration, I think this fits it perfectly, and I really love it. This is, I think my favorite thing that I've tried this year so far. There have been some other things that I've really loved and things that I said would be contenders for top palettes of the year, but I think this might end up being it again. But we'll see. It's the end of April. There's plenty of time for other stuff to come out, but I think this is really beautiful. This is limited edition. Once it sells out, it's gone. I did get Flora Kalahari. It was sold out everywhere for months, and one of the boutiques still had it when I was in LA. So you can call them and see if they have it if it sells out, but this should be restocking on the Byredo website, I think, in the next couple weeks, probably in April, I think I heard. And then there are third parties that still have it. But if you want to get from Byredo, you can email them, but I think it is supposed to restock again on their website. I will have an affiliate link in the description box, at least for Byredo. If it's anywhere else, I will have that as well. I do really appreciate when you use those. I think when I posted this to my community page, 6 people did use it, and I was very touched by that because, like, not making a lot of money on YouTube, so that doesn't even pay for the palette in those commissions, but any bit helps. So really, really love this. I think if you like more luxury formulas, if you like those really refined, really silky smooth, finely milled formulas, and you want sparkle and shine and not like foiled metallic, and you don't want like indie sparkle or shift, you're really gonna like this. If you are someone who really goes for those foiled metallics and super sparkly, super glittery shadows, I don't think you're gonna like this, and it's gonna be a waste of money. So I think if you're really drawn to the color story, pause, because it's a lot of money, and think, is this the right thing for me? One, do I have the money in my budget? Can I afford it? Is it available? Those things. But also, like, is this a formula I will like? Is this gonna be worth it for me? Whenever I review something, I always like to reference that, because makeup is so subjective. What is worth it for me and what is a perfect palette for me is not necessarily going to be worth it or perfect for you, and I want to make sure that I am giving you enough context and details that you can make informed decisions yourself when you do spend your own money. So I hope this video was helpful. Let me know what you think in the comments below of the different looks, this look, the other ones. I would love to hear your thoughts. Are you one of the people that already picked this up? Have you been playing with it? Everyone I've seen talk about getting it has been really enjoying it, so I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you all in my next video.